a proper assessment of the state of the nation. But I think it's instructive that he talked about citizens are ahead of leadership, and they want a listening leadership. And all the questions asked by the people must be answered. And even said there are discussions about whether leaders understand the pain, hardship, and struggles endured by countless citizens every day as they strive to make ends meet, and whether the government is doing anything about it. So you can see it's like more or less laughing at the people saying, you know, this is what you're saying. But then the answer is, you can go to hell. You know, in terms of what answers are provided as, you know, this conversation has kind of demonstrated. Now, I want to talk about like this femicide. You know, sometimes you wonder, how come there are abductions? How come there are shootings of young people? How come there is the quarry, the body is deposited at quarry? How come afterwards there is this unexplainable upsurge of femicide? So that it looks like after one thing happens, something else happens, so that you can talk about it. You don't quite understand how it is emerging because it is like an upsurge. So we have to be careful also that some of these things are not also being orchestrated so that there is diversion, you know, by the state. And it's true that there is, you know, significant mental health. That's a huge thing, particularly among even young people. A lot of them, you know, into the very cheap mukuka, cheap drugs, the alcohol, chrome, some other thing called county, and of course the system knows that these drinks are hurting the young people, are actually disappearing them from social life and from even political life. So it's also intentional because a system normally would say that these drinks are not good and they should not be allowed to be exposed to young people. But having said about the femicide, it is an issue that must be addressed. And there were those groups like PIDA, you know, there were groups that, you know, were doing that work and are doing this work. But some of this 100 million, we have to be careful whether it is being deployed to the 16 days of activism, so that government people go all over the county, all over the counties, trying now to do something about femicide. So that again, instead of the money going to groups and through, you know, proper, you know, through parliament or whatever it is in a proper way, it is not actually used for government to endear itself, to try to endear itself to appear to be solving problems, using it to go to the counties. That is something that we need to look at. And there was an earlier question asked about the religious sector, that the religious sector appears to have kind of waken up. And of course, the Gen Zs were very harsh, rightly so, to the religious sector because it had abated the coming into power, you know, of this system. And I think we have to be careful so that when we have allies or their allies who have begun to say that they don't like what has been happening, if you are very hard on them again, you're chasing them away from the support of progressive forces, and because allies are important. The Gen Zs, the civil society, the faith people, eventually the business class, you have to, the more you get people on your side, the more you weaken a system that is predatory. And so people also have to be very, very, very strategic in terms of how do you woo people to your side. And I think maybe there are people here on this call who are political scientists, but it is clear that the president is not, you know, maybe sleeping a lot of the time. He's strategizing, because if you get, for example, Raila on your side, if you have all of parliament on your side, and of course he was saying that like the gender rule, the 2/3 has not been achieved, but he has all the parliament on his side, and even the court said you can dissolve parliament. The chief justice wrote to the president, you can dissolve a parliament if they don't, pass this legislation. So why doesn't he do that? And why doesn't he get all these people who do what he tells them to do the necessary? So you can see it's again taking back issues to like the IPOA, what was stated, the IPOA by NATO, and so on, and he knows that IPOA has been, if I can use this word, it has been kind of castrated. So that again is court strategy. But now we have been told that the principal secretaries have not been working. So now it's necessary to make new ones. We have been told now there must be a more focused performance contract and all that. So you can see those are strategies that are being used, whether it is getting political people, parliament, whether it is getting, the new permanent secretaries and so on, because it appears like initially he brought on board people who supported him to kind of say, you did a good job, you supported me. And now he's saying, okay, it looks like things are not working. Let's get the new breed so that you can get 2027. So one asks, is what is happening because of incompetence? Or is it a strategy to impoverish the people so that during 2027 elections, you can buy them easily? So that 2026, 2027 are handouts years where you say, hustler, you can get it without even having to pay it. And there's a lot of money going everywhere, bribing leaders, the kind of weak leaders, bribing the citizens and all that kind of stuff, especially rural folk. So we have to ask ourselves, and this is not yet time for like way forward, but we have to ask ourselves the corruption thing, because if we deal with that, and Bonnie, talk to that. If we deal with this tribalism, this culture of, people complain, and then at the end, they're all put under the yoke of tribalism. Even educated people, even intellectuals, even whoever, we go back to the tribal thing. Just like in America, where I think there is some eminent professor from Kennedy School of Government who said America has gone back to bad politics, to really something very, 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 a culture of doing things the bad way. We have been doing that in Kenya and in a lot of the African countries where, we complain and then finally we still support what hurts us. And we get into the hands-out and we get into the state using IEBC or the electoral body, using instruments of the state and resources to give itself power. We have talked a lot about civic education. There isn't proper mechanism for making sure that in the 1,450 wards, it is really happening. But maybe finally, to talk about I think the question which was asked about the church, I think I've answered that, and the faith general, not just the church, that when they say that this is not right, like happened in the 90s, and even happened during Mau Mau, and so on, then one must not continue criticizing them when they are saying that now we can see that this is not working. There should be support so that the more you get allies, you secure them. You don't tell them, you have done so many things in the past, we don't trust you. Of course, if they go back, then they are called out, because if they do now things that are counter the new move, then they are told, no, we want you to stay firm. The courage that Redemptor was talking about. But I think as maybe towards the end of this, and I have a class tomorrow, so I have also to prepare for my class. But I think we really need to say what is the way forward and be firm, and because unless we can show to Kenyans that there is an alternative, then Kenyans will say, okay, maybe these people will change. Maybe they are calling more people, into this broad-based stuff, and maybe it will be better. And because that has been the history of our 60 plus years of independence. And I learned by saying, you cannot underestimate the president and these guys who are coming together, because when they feel that there are people who are planning seriously to get them out, then they come together, and what I call the old canoe, keeps on coming together, and we think they are different, and then they come together, they are not different. So we really have to, be very focused in terms of what needs to be done, and I learned. Redemptor, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor. There are so many things. We are going through so many things. Even when we have conversations, we don't know which one to tackle first. Back to you, Honorable Martha. Governance, corruption, and Adani, and the specific one, because you're lawyers. Is there a way of undoing some of these